King Nebuchadnezzar sent this letter to the many nations and language groups living around the world. This is what it said. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at my palace. I was happy and successful, but I had a dream that made me afraid. I was lying on my bed and I saw pictures and visions in my mind. These things made me very afraid. So I gave an order that all the wise men of Babylon be brought to me to tell me what my dream meant. When the advisors arrived, I told them about the dream, but they couldn't tell me what it meant. Finally, Daniel came to me. I told him about my dream. I said, Daniel, you are the most important of all the advisors. I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you. I know there is no secret that is too hard for you to understand. This is what I dreamed. Tell me what it means. These were the visions I saw while I was lying on my bed. I looked, and there in front of me was a tree standing in the middle of the earth. The tree was very tall. It grew large and strong. The top of the tree touched the sky. It could be seen from anywhere on earth. The leaves of the tree were beautiful. It had much good fruit on it. And on the tree was plenty of food for everyone. The wild animals found shelter under the tree, and the birds lived in its branches. Every animal ate from the tree. I was looking at these things in the vision while lying on my bed, when I saw a holy angel coming down from heaven. He spoke very loud and said, "Cut down the tree and cut off its branches. Strip off its leaves. Scatter its fruit around. The animals that are under the tree will run away. The birds that are in the branches will fly away. But let the stump and the roots stay in the ground. Put a band of iron and bronze around it. The stump and roots will stay in the field and the grass all around it. It will live among the wild animals and plants in the fields and will become wet with dew. He will not think like a man any longer. He will have the mind of an animal. 7 seasons will pass while he is like this. God gives these kingdoms to whoever he wants, and he chooses humble people to rule them. This is what I, King Nebuchadnezzar, dreamed. Now, Daniel, tell me what it means. None of the wise men in my kingdom can tell me what the dream means. But Daniel, you can interpret the dream, because the spirit of the holy gods is in you." Then Daniel became very quiet for a while. What he was thinking bothered him, so the king said, "Daniel, don't let the dream or its meaning make you afraid." Then Daniel answered the king, "My lord, I wish the dream were about your enemies, and I wish the meaning of the dream were about those who are against you. You saw a large, beautiful, strong, and powerful tree in your dream. O king, you are that tree. You have become great and powerful. You are like the tall tree that touched the sky. Your power reaches to the far parts of the earth. King, this is the meaning of the dream. God Most High has commanded these things to happen to my lord the king. You will be forced to go away from people. You will live among the wild animals and eat grass like the cows. You will be wet with dew. 7 seasons will pass, and you will learn this lesson, that God, Most High, rules over human kingdoms and gives them to whoever he wants. The command to leave the stump of the tree and its roots in the ground means this: your kingdom will be given back to you. This will happen when you learn that the Most High God rules your kingdom. So, King, please accept my advice. Stop sinning and do what is right. Stop doing bad things and be kind to people in need. Then you might continue to be successful." All these things happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. "12 months after the dream, King Nebuchadnezzar was walking on the roof of his palace in Babylon. While on the roof, the king said, 'Look at Babylon. I built this great city. This is my wonderful palace. I built this place by my power. I built this place, and everyone can see how great I am.' The words were still in his mouth when a voice came from heaven. The voice said, 'King Nebuchadnezzar, these things will happen to you. Your power as king has been taken away. You will be forced to go away from people. You will live with the wild animals and eat grass like the cows. 7 seasons will pass before you learn your lesson. Then you will learn that God Most High rules over human kingdoms and gives them to whoever he wants. These things happened immediately. Nebuchadnezzar was forced to go away from people. He ate grass like the cows, became wet from the dew, and his nails grew long like the claws of the bird. Then, at the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up towards heaven, and I was in my right mind again. I gave praise to God Most High. I gave honor and glory to him who lives forever. God rules forever. His kingdom continues for all generations. No one can stop his powerful hand or question what he does. At that time, God gave me my right mind again, and he gave me back my great honor and power as king. My advisors and the royal people sought me out and began to ask my advice again. I became king again, even greater and more powerful than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, give thanks to the King of heaven. King Belshazzar gave a big party for 1,000 of his officials. The king was drinking wine with everybody. And as he was drinking his wine, he ordered his servants to bring the gold and silver cups that his grandfather, Nebuchadnezzar, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem. King Belshazzar wanted all of his royal people and everyone at the party to drink from those cups. So they brought the gold and the silver that had been taken from the temple of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his officials and everyone there drank from the cups. As they were drinking, they gave praise to their idol gods, which were only statues made from gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone, things that people had made with their hands. When suddenly, a person's hand appeared and began writing on the wall. The fingers scratched words into the plaster on the wall near the lampstand in the king's palace. The king was watching as the hand wrote. He was so afraid, his face became white from fear, his knees started shaking and knocking together. So he called for his advisors to be brought to him. He said to these wise men, "I will give a reward to anyone who can read this writing and explain to me what it means. I will give him a purple robe to wear, and will put a gold chain around his neck, and I will make him the 3rd highest ruler in all the kingdom." So, all the king's wise men came in, but they couldn't read the writing or understand what it meant. All of the officials were confused, and the king became even more afraid and worried. But then the king's mother came into the palace where the party was. She heard the voices of the king and his royal officials. So she said, "King, may you live forever. Don't be afraid. Don't be so white with fear. There is a man in your kingdom who has the spirit of the holy gods in him. In the days of your father, this man showed that he could understand secrets. The man I am talking about is named Daniel. He is very smart, and he knows many things. He could interpret dreams, explain secrets, and find the answer to very hard problems. Call for Daniel, and he will tell you what the writing on the wall means." So they brought Daniel to the king, and the king said, "I have heard you are able to explain what things mean, that you can find the answers to dreams and very hard problems. If you can read this writing on the wall, I will give you this purple robe, put a gold chain around your neck, and you will become the 3rd highest ruler in the kingdom." But Daniel answered the king, "King Belshazzar, you can keep your gifts for yourself, or you can give them to someone else. But I will still read the writing on the wall for you and explain what it means. Don't you remember your grandfather Nebuchadnezzar, a very great and powerful king? God gave him very great wealth and power. People from all the nations and language groups respected Nebuchadnezzar because God made him a very powerful king. But Nebuchadnezzar was proud and stubborn, so his power was taken away from him. He was taken off his royal throne and stripped of his glory. He was forced to go away from people, and his mind became like the mind of a wild animal. He ate grass like the cows. These things happened to him until he learned his lesson. He learned that God Most High rules over human kingdoms. But Belshazzar, you already knew this. You are Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, but still you have not made yourself humble. Instead, God has sent this warning to you. You gave praise to the gods of gold and silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. They are not really gods. So because of that, God sent the hand that wrote on the wall. These are the words that were written: Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. This is what the words mean. Mene, God has counted the days until your kingdom will end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found not good enough. And Upharsin, your kingdom is going to be taken away from you. It will be divided among the Medes and the Persians. Then Belshazzar gave an order for Daniel to be dressed in the purple robes. A gold chain was put around his neck, and he was appointed the third highest ruler in the kingdom. But that very same night, Belshazzar, king of the Babylonians, was killed, and a man named Darius from Persia became the new king.
What an interesting story. So what can we learn from it? Because I don't know about you, but I'm not a king or a queen. But we do have people in our lives who give us good advice, whether that's our parents or guardians, brothers or sisters or other people at home. It could be sports coaches, could be our teachers, could be our music teachers. And for some of us, we might take our instructions and good advice from the Bible, God's word. So wherever we get our instructions from, we have a choice, don't we, when we hear advice? We can choose to follow that advice and maybe make a change. Sometimes that's not entirely easy if it's a big change we need to make. Or we can choose to ignore the advice and keep on doing what we were doing before. Now, the two kings in the story today, they were both really proud, weren't they? They heard some good advice, they heard a message from God, and they chose to do their own thing, thinking that they knew best and that they were the strongest. And they soon learned that God was stronger, He was in charge, and that they should have listened to that advice after all. So, who is a good example to follow in today's story? Well, I'd like to suggest that Daniel is a really good example for us to follow, and maybe he's got some good advice for us. See, he did 3 things that really helped him out. First of all, he followed God even though it was hard. Now, it was really scary to say to a king that message. He must have been trembling in his boots. But he did what God had told him to do because he knew it was the best advice that he'd been given. And you know what he did? He trusted God in that time, and God helped him through. So if you ever find yourself in a difficult situation where you know you've got a right choice to make and maybe the easy way out, remember that God helped Daniel when he chose the difficult decision, when he made a change for the king by giving that advice. And maybe that can help you through in those times. Second of all, Daniel spoke the truth gently. He gave the message to the king honestly and without judgment. So in times when we need to share the truth with others, let's be gentle too. We don't need to prove that we're right. Daniel knew the king had a message from God, and so he shared that with him, with love. I wonder what message God would have for us to give to others too. Thirdly, Daniel refused the reward. Now, it was given to him anyway, but that's not the reason why he did it. It's important for us to remember when we're praised to give thanks where thanks is due. So thank those who've encouraged us along the way. Maybe thank God for helping us get through, for giving us the strength to keep on going or the energy when we found it hard. Make sure not to puff ourselves up with pride like the kings did, to make sure to have that humble attitude and to know who's helped us along. Now this is quite a challenge for us, isn't it? It can be hard to listen for others if they've got a good advice for us, especially if that advice means that we need to make a change in our own lives. That can be really difficult. But it's important that we learn not to let pride blind us to the changes we might need to make. So the kings were so proud that they couldn't see any changes and they ended up in a real pickle. So why don't we learn a lesson from Daniel? To step back from our pride, to be humble and gentle with others, and to be willing to listen to good advice and make changes where we need to, so that we can grow. Take a moment to look at the tree as we think, reflect, and pray. Dear God, thank you for the good advice you give us in the Bible. Thank you for the people in our lives who give us helpful instructions and good examples to follow. Please help us not to be too proud to make changes, but instead to listen to the people who care for us and to follow good advice so that we can grow. Amen.